네, 여러분 안녕하십니까? 제9차 방사성 폐기물 안전관리 국제심포지엄 고준위 방패물 소통 콘서트 어제 이어서 오늘도 함께해 주셔서 진심으로 감사드립니다. 어제 우리는요, 일본, 캐나다, 프랑스, 스웨덴 사례를 통해서 고준위 방사성 폐기물 관리 정책과 부지 선정 과정, 그리고 지역 사회와의 소통 경험을 함께 살펴봤습니다. 오늘은 그 여정을 이어가면서 스위스와 핀란드의 경험, 그리고 OECD, NEA가 바라보는 국제적인 관점까지 함께 만나보실 텐데요. 특히나 핀란드는 세계 최초로 사용 후 핵연료 영구 처분시설 건설 단계에 진입한 국가로 부지 선정부터 사회적 합의, 그리고 최종 부지 확보에 이르기까지 어떤 과정을 거쳐서 그 단계에 도달할 수 있었는지 오늘 직접 들어보실 수 있겠습니다. 네, 그럼 지금부터 둘째 날 프로그램을 시작할 텐데요. 먼저 스위스의 사례를 만나보시겠습니다. 스위스는 현재 심층 처분시설 부지를 선정하고 부지 확정을 위한 절차를 진행하고 있는 국가인데요. 우리나라 로드맵으로 보면 부지 선정 이후 본격적인 연구와 검증, 그리고 시설 허가를 준비하는 단계에 해당한다고 보시면 되겠습니다. 과학적인 검증과 지역 사회와의 소통을 어떻게 병행해 왔는지, 그리고 영구 처분 시설 건설을 위해서 어떤 준비를 이어가고 있는지 오늘 직접 들어보실 수 있겠습니다. 네, 그럼 위쪽으로 모시겠습니다. 스위스 방사성 폐기물 관리기관 나그라의 소통 실장 패트릭 스튜던님 위쪽으로 모시겠습니다. 여러분 따뜻한 박수로 환영해 주시기 바랍니다. We'd like to welcome our speaker from NAGRA, the National Cooperative for the Disposal of Radioactive Waste in Switzerland. And please welcome our guest once again with a big round of applause.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Patrick. I'm from Switzerland. I'm working at NAGRA as the Deputy Head of Communications. And I would like to thank you for the invitation. It's really a great honor to be here. And the last few days have already been very interesting. Before I start my presentation, I guess I should give you some context, because I've realized that our approach in Switzerland is really different to the approach many other countries have. In Switzerland, we've just submitted the general license applications a little bit more than 1 year ago. But our approach is completely science-based. So we don't have this voluntary approach. Our approach is really science-based, and it's the geology that is deciding.
I'm sorry, but the presentation is like uploading right now when it's dispatched in our internet. So maybe can you just please wait for a moment? We'd like to ask for your understanding. Sorry about this.
Yeah.
네, 저희 지금
PPT를 for the first few words, I don't need that. I don't need the
you don't need the
presentation. So I think I just could go on with the context.
Yes,
now.
okay.
Yeah. In Switzerland, we started with a white map, and then in the first step, we had to identify 6 sites that are safe, and in the second step, we narrowed it down to 3 regions, and finally, we identified the best, the safest place in Switzerland. And well, after that, we had to go to the region and tell them, well, your region is the safest, and it was a completely different approach. Is it ready now?
It looks like we're almost ready, but I guess I have to ask once again.
Yeah, maybe I can go on and explain that now at the moment the authorities are reviewing our application, our general license application, and after that there will be a political decision in Switzerland. And it's the Federal Council and the Parliament that has to decide on the license, and in the end, it's the voters who have to decide. There will be a national referendum if on our repository, and yeah, that's because we have direct democracy in Switzerland, so the voters have to decide on many topics and questions, and also on the repository. That's why communication is really important at NAGRA. And yeah. Yeah, but maybe I could go on. I don't need the presentation, the slides I've prepared. Well, the interesting thing is that it wasn't our first site selection process. We've already did that before, a little bit more than 30 years ago. We already had a site, we selected a site in the center of Switzerland, but the reactions were quite difficult, let's say negative, let's say emotional, and the project failed. We had another approach then. We just wanted to find a safe site, not the safest site, and yeah, the acceptance in the local community was quite low.
I'm so sorry, so we need some time to reload our presentation. So if you need
Yeah,
the
I can do
presentation-
it without the slides, no problem.
so if you need the presentation, we can just take a little break and then move on after it is ready.
Yeah, okay, let's have a little break.
Thank you
Short
very
break.
much. Sorry for the inconvenience.
No problem.
Sorry one second. 네, 저희가 이 PPT 업로드에 지금 약간 문제가 생겨서요. 저희가 이걸 다시 한 번 더 확인한 후에 이어서 발표 진행하겠습니다. 여러분, 불편을 끼쳐드려서 다시 한 번 더 죄송드리고요. 잠시만 기다려주시면 감사하겠습니다. 네, 여러분 기다려주셔서 감사합니다. 오늘 연사님의 발표 2번 소개할 만큼 특별한 발표가 아니어서 그렇지 않나라는 생각이 듭니다. 네, 여러분 다시 한 번 더 박수로 환영 부탁드리겠습니다. Please welcome him once again. Maybe it is as special as you have deserved to be introduced for twice.
Thank you very much. So let's try again. Yeah, it feels like a little bit like our first site selection process. So my start failed too. Yeah, and I've already told you, yes, we've just submitted the general license application, but it was not our first site selection. This was the reaction to our first site selection result. The local population didn't accept it. The emotions ran high. It's a very old picture, as you can see. I asked ChatGPT to improve the picture and to translate the banner. I hope the translation is correct. And yes, we lost a local referendum, but we lost not one referendum, we even lost 2 referendum. And today we have a different situation, a completely different situation. Today we have 68% local acceptance, although we don't have this voluntary approach. And we have 66% national acceptance. What does that mean? 66% of the population would accept a repository in their own city or village. And we are quite happy with that. And we hope that this acceptance that we can keep it. Something has gone in the meantime. And maybe you are wondering what happened in the meantime. To be honest, the law has been changed. The parliament changed the law and there is no local referendum anymore. But we have this national referendum. But at the same time, we as Nagra, we learned a lot. We changed our communication and we changed our attitude. And today I would like to talk about what we've learned during these last few years. Okay. Okay, we are back. I'm aware there is no one-size-fits-all solution. We have different cultures, we have different democratic systems. I'm totally aware that maybe the Swiss solution is not your solution, but I want to tell you what we've learned. And yes, we've learned that there are approaches that seem to be more helpful than others. And I want to show you 5 lessons we've learned. The first lesson is ask first, answer later. We have a lot of expertise. We know so much about geology. We love it to explain the difference between crystalline and clay, and we can talk about radionuclides for hours. And we've learned sometimes the local population is less interested in these details than we are. That's why we started to ask first, what do you want to know from us? And I want to give you an example how we do it. When we communicated our site proposal, we opened this small visitor center in the local, in the village where we want to build the repository. And this is how we welcomed the visitors. We welcomed them with questions. We asked them, I don't know if you understand German, is it safe enough? Are we allowed to do this? What would you do? Do we know enough? Of course, I have the translation, thanks ChatGPT. And then we asked visitors to write down their questions. And they did that. They wrote down their questions and their comments, and we collected them. And then, in the second step, we answered them. I don't know if the video is working. Our CEO answered all these questions we collected, and then we made a lot of videos for social media and published them online. Okay, the video is not working, but no problem. So we had a lot of content we could provide, and we answered the question that were of interest, and we didn't answer the questions we wanted to answer, but we answered the question they asked us. And we were quite surprised. We were well prepared for questions like how safe it is, why here, why exactly here. But this was not that interesting for them. They asked more, where will the construction workers live? Do we have enough space for them? Where will their kids go to school? Questions like this. Here, translated, what would be the worst scenario? That was one question, and we answered it. The second lessons we learned is we had to realize we are not the only experts. Yes, we are experts in geology, in the scientific field, but the locals are experts too. They know everything about the region. They know how the village works, how the traffic works, and so on. And we had to learn they are also experts in their field, and we can work together, and we have to work together at a level. The word transparency, we hear it all the time, and we use this word all the time. But I think the more you use this word, the less transparent you are. I think it can even be counterproductive if you use the word all the time, and we try to avoid this word, and we try to live it, and we try to show it, not to tell it. One example, we submitted the general license application, and then we published the whole application. We did it voluntarily, 30,000 pages. We don't have to do that. The authorities will publish it in a few years for 3 months. And that's just not enough for us. We want to enable people to discuss our application. And it was quite, for us, a huge thing. And we don't have to hide anything. And if we can publish anything, we do it. And we don't talk about transparency, we live it. We had to learn that we have to share the stage. At Nagra, we have a lot of manpower. We have a communication and dialogue team. We have the financial resources for online campaigns and events and for traveling and so on. And sometimes we realized we are always in the middle of everything, and maybe the local mayor, he doesn't have a staff and a communication team as we have. So we try to share the attention, to share the stage. I can give you an example too. We have our magazine of the century. I have a few copies with me if you are interested in English also. And then these are the mayors of the local villages in the side regions. And we went to Finland with them and we documented the whole journey. We made a video documentary, and yeah, it was the mayors who were focused in the whole story. And we did not only share the stage, we offered them the stage. And so they could also show that they are learning and traveling and doing a lot to understand the project. And yeah, I guess that was really appreciated. Okay, we had to learn that we have to address the risks and the uncertainties. It's a little bit like with the word transparency. The more you repeat that the repository is safe, the less trust you get, I would say. We started to address the risks quite often. How do we do it? Another magazine about risks. How dangerous is it? Yes, we know it's not that dangerous, but we don't know anything, and there are risks. How big or how small are they? We talk about these things. We try to talk about our blind spots. And another example, we made a media event for journalists, and the title was What We Don't Know. It was a background discussions with journalists, and it was a great success. And they were quite surprised, and they said, so normally you talk to us and about the things you find out and about all the things you know. And it was a great success. Thank you, ChatGPT, for this translation again. Yes, that's already my conclusion. I guess this humility, dialogue, and mutual respect, we've learned that these values, if you do not only talk about it, but if you live it, they are as important as the facts, or they are even more important. And that's the way we want to work. We don't want to talk about values. We always try to live them. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick Stewart, for your wonderful presentation once again. 네, 패트릭 스튜어님께서 오늘 정말 멋진 발표를 해주셨습니다. 저희가 어제에 이어서 오늘도 발표를 계속 청해 듣고 있는데요. 정말 여러 국가에서 발표를 해주시고 계신데 또 공통된 점이 있습니다. 이 사업이기는 합니다만 결국은 대화, 상호 존중, 그리고 투명성이 제일 강조된다는 점이겠죠. 그리고 오늘 발표가 끝나고 나면 청중과의 대화가 오늘도 준비가 되어 있습니다. 오늘 발표해 주신 연사님들 무대 위쪽으로 모셔서 이제 또 다시 한 번 더 청중과의 대화가 진행될 텐데요. 어제 진행했던 것과 비슷하게 저희가 이따 잠시 후에 QR코드를 또 띄워드릴 겁니다. 그러면 여러분께서 성함과 함께 질문을 제출해 주시면 되고요. 저희 이름표에 있는 성함으로 제출을 해 주셔야 합니다. 저희가 확인을 한 후에 오늘도 경품을 드리기 때문에 여러분들의 많은 참여와 또 관심을 부탁드리겠습니다. 혹시 여기 어제 에어팟 받아가신 분 계실까요? 계시는군요. 네. 정말 죄송하지만 또 다른 분께 기회를 드리기 위해서 좋은 질문은 언제나 감사합니다만 오늘 어제 받아가셨던 분들의 경우에는 경품에서는 제외된다는 점 다시 한 번 더 말씀드리겠습니다. 또 어제 한 분 더 제가 기억나시는데 네, 정말 죄송하게도 질문은 언제나 환영이지만 경품은 다른 분께 오늘은 양보해 주시면 감사하겠습니다. 그래서 오늘도 좋은 전자기기가 마련이 될 예정이니까요. 여러분들의 많은 관심과 또 참여 부탁드리겠습니다. 저희 QR코드는 이따가 끝나고 나서 커피 브레이크 시간에 띄워드릴 테니까요. 그 전까지 핸드폰 메모로 이렇게 작성해 두셨다가 빠르게 한번 또 QR코드로 보내주시면 저희가 그 대화도 차근차근 하나씩 전해드리겠습니다. 네, 이 방사성 폐기물의 안전한 관리는요, 사실 어느 한 나라가 많이 할 수 있는 건 아닙니다. 어느 한 세대만의 문제도 또 아니겠죠. 우리가 오늘 내리는 결정과 또 쌓아가는 이 노력이 수십 년 또 길게는 또 수백 년까지 봐야 하는 문제일 텐데 가장 큰 문제가 우리 미래 세대 그리고 후손들에게까지 그대로 이어지게 된다는 점이겠죠. 그래서 오늘 이 자리에 계신 한 분 한 분의 전문성과 고민이 그만큼 중요하게 되는 겁니다. 물론 기술적 노력은 꾸준히 발전을 해오기는 했습니다. 다만 또 우리가 잊지 말아야 할 건 기술은 단순히 이 문제를 풀어가는 도구일 뿐 그 자체가 답이 되지는 않는다는 점이겠죠. 그렇기 때문에 벌써 9번째를 맡고 있는 이 심포지엄이 더욱더 중요한 의미를 가지는 것 같습니다. 이렇게 우리에게 가지는 의미는 무엇일지 제가 좀 생각을 해봤는데요. 어제랑 오늘 계속해서 이렇게 발표를 듣고 있습니다. 저는 그 해답이 바로 함께 풀어간다는 데 있는 것 같습니다. 어제 청중과의 대화 시간에서도 가장 중점적으로 여러분들께서 여쭤봤던 것이 결국 이 소통의 문제를 어떻게 해결했느냐였습니다. 그리고 연사님들께서도 또 공통으로 답변을 주셨어요. 결국은 투명성이 가장 중요하다. 아무것도 숨기는 것이 없어야 우리가 사람들의 신뢰를 얻을 수 있다라고 말씀을 해주셨죠. 그래서 한 나라의 안전관리 수준이 이웃 나라의 안전과도 직결이 되기 때문에 우리가 각자의 자리에서 따로 고민을 하는 것이 아니라 이렇게 한 자리에 모여서 서로 이야기를 하는 게 정말 중요하지 않나라는 생각이 들었습니다. 네, 그래서 저희가 오늘 스위스의 발표를 청해 들었고요. 이어서 핀란드에서 오신 연사님들 모셔서 발표 청해 듣겠습니다. 핀란드의 경우에는 아까 제가 말씀드렸듯이 세계 최초로 사용 후 핵연료 연구 처분 시설을 현실화한 국가인데요. 우리나라가 장기적으로 지향하고 있는 최종 목표를 가장 먼저 이뤄낸 만큼 오늘 발표는 단순한 해외 사례 소개를 넘어서 앞으로 우리가 참고해야 할 정말 중요한 경험이 될 것입니다. 핀란드가 어떤 과정을 거쳐서 지역 사회의 신뢰를 얻고 또 연구 처분 시설 확보까지 나아갈 수 있었는지 저희 오늘 핀란드에서 오신 포시바 솔루션스의 미카 포요넨 대표 이사님 모시고 발표 청해 듣겠습니다. 여러분 큰 박수로 환영해 주시기 바랍니다. I'd like to invite our next speaker from Finland, Managing Director Mika Poyonen from Posiva Solutions, and please welcome him with a big round of applause once again. 네, 여러분 다시 한 번 더 큰 박수로 환영 부탁드리겠습니다.
This button. 포인트.
Okay. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to be invited to speak here today, and I will introduce the stakeholder involvement in our case, in the Finnish case. My name is Mika Pohjonen, and I'm heading the subsidiary of Posiva Solutions, but today I will put Posiva hat on me and talk on behalf of Posiva. This is challenging. Okay, just shortly where I come from. This is our dear home island. We have 3 nuclear units there. World's newest one in the behind, Olkiluoto 3. Then we have a final repository for low and intermediate waste, which has been in operation since 1992, more than 30 years. And in the front here, in the front area here, we have our repository area, Onkalo area. So that is finished almost finished. Last tests of last equipment are ongoing, and if and when we get the permission operating license next year, then we are ready to go. I don't bother with you the phases of our 44-year program, 43-year-old program, but I point out that the first phase there, the site selection phase, which we did first in the world, most of the things there took 17 years. And with the information level nowadays, I think that it could be made in a little bit shorter time. And therefore, I believe that Konrad's presentation, or Konrad's plan to have site selection phase done in 9 to 13 years is realistic. But let's go to the topic of today. Imagine yourself in a situation where you have had a house built for you. And everything in your house starts to be ready, and the contractor is just finishing things. But he says that he needs to do one more thing and install a sealed box into your basement. He says it is safe, it is tested, it is certified, and you don't need to touch it or you don't need to worry it. It doesn't harm you in any way. But you don't really know what the box is, what is there. So you start to wonder, what is this box? Is it somehow checked? Why it is here? Does it start to leak? Does it smell? What happens after 50 years? So engaging stakeholders replaces rumor and kind of thinking, pondering what it is with understanding. So because people tend to fear or worry about things they don't understand or know. And those fears can be significant in the context of nuclear waste. And fear provokes actions, like we saw from Patrick's presentation. So, in order to be technically and regulatory successful, one needs the social license to operate. And there are lots of studies which show that early engagement, consistent engagement, that it brings the benefit that the project faces fewer delays, gains stronger community support, and achieves more accepted outcomes. So engagement replaces rumor and decreases fear and worry. As I mentioned day before yesterday, we and Posiva have from the very beginning thought, not from the very beginning, but from the quite beginning thought that everyone is an important stakeholder. So stakeholders, we define all interested parties, locally, nationally, and internationally. Each group brings in their own expectations, own concerns, and own level of understanding. So, engaging stakeholders, it has to be integrated into planning and implementing the process of the project. It has to be integrated into decision-making and communications all the time. And it must be ensured that no group is overlooked. So what we use is stakeholder mapping, feedback mechanisms, etc., to identify different stakeholders. I come soon to that why it's important to understand the differences between the stakeholders. And stakeholder engagement is a continuous process, not a single activity or milestone. And in fact, it contains the following elements. It's early, it's two-way, it's continuous, it's frequent, it's honest, and it's tailored to each stakeholder. And it's good to notice also that engagement processes And activities must evolve, they must change when the project progresses and stakeholder understanding, their concerns and interests change. How then to engage stakeholders? We have heard these from many presentations, and I'm happy that we have heard these from many presentations. By listening. Human being has 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you should use those in that proportion. So listening and dialogue. And using means and messages which are adapted to the needs of different audiences. Not everybody is interested, and everybody is interested in different topics and on different depth. So one must understand that you don't give the 3,000-page report to somebody who just asks, is this safe or not? Okay, it's safe, thank you, that's enough. But you have to give the 3,000-page report to those who want to really learn in depth. And stakeholders, as we have heard before, previous presentations, they should not only receive information, but to be invited to ask questions, receive answers, etc. And the second bullet, you must be understandable. We in Posiva think that if somebody doesn't understand our message, it's our fault. It's our obligation to be understandable to school children, to scientists, to authority, to media, etc. So this is kind of an inclusive approach which builds resilience and trust. We learned this lesson in 1990s when the site selection process really started gain pace, and our research and development director at that time looked back in 2007 and told that for us the period 1990s was a learning process in which some of our earlier roles were turned upside down. Instead of educating people, we started to listen to them and other stakeholders and acknowledge different viewpoints and perspectives. This, I believe, brought us much more public trust than all the previous reports and brochures together. The basis for that was the environmental impact assessment process that was in early phases in 1990s. But anyway, it has these features. We have had two official EIA processes, but I just want to point out that these are not the entity, these are just processes, and the stakeholder engagement is continuous, and it continues still. So, but EIA processes, which we did first for the basic project and then later the enlargement, it contains these elements: early public involvement, accessible and understandable communication, two-way dialogue, surveys, interviews, small group discussions, etc., etc. Not just spreading information, distributing information, and independent expertise. External experts and consultants were hired to analyze and to criticize us. And transparency beyond borders. In Europe, there is this transboundary EIA convention, which means that the neighboring countries needs to be listened as well. And long-term perspective. So in practice, these were the main classes of concerns in red font and responses in a very summarized way. So fear of negative impacts on tourism, livelihoods, agriculture, etc. So these were addressed through open discussions and studies and long-term local, and addressing also the long-term local benefits. So impact is not only negative, impact can be neutral or impact can be also positive. Then there were concerns abroad because we were doing something first in the world, and these were addressed through this transboundary EIA. So the EIA was extended to neighboring countries as well. Safety questions, as in Canada, we have heard transport risks raise attention. Worst case scenarios, as Patrick's presentation addressed, long-term impacts. And these were response with safety assessment, worst case scenarios, independent reviews, but in an understandable way. And of course, mistrust towards the project owners, meaning Posiva's information and expertise. And this was addressed by involving external experts. Communication challenges, this means that one has to be understandable. So this was responded with accessible, non-technical communication and visual materials. You have to take into account that there was no social media at this time. So this was based on brochures and this kind of situations, occasions, etc. But how we do it now, because I said that this is continuous process and will continue the next 100 years or more. So this picture from 1970s, TVO built nuclear power plants at that time. They brought people, it was exceptional at that time. They brought ordinary people by buses to see what is being built here in Olkiluoto. And this is from 2020s. People come by buses to visit our visitor center. So nowadays, we are very active in social media. We have events for local residents, summer residents, and there are energy team days with schools, cooperation with technical institutes, universities, etc., etc. You can read those, but multiple communication, multi-level communication, and tailored to very large variety of stakeholders. Also some small-scale sponsorships of sports, culture, science, and non-profit activities. Visitor center is our main window, or it's our main window for people to our operations. We have 15,000 to 18,000 visitors annually. It's the #1 tourist attraction in our region, but it's due to that the region is boring as such. So this is the #1 attraction there. So we provide accessible information. Visitor center is open 7 days a week. It's for free. It's from 10 to 8 p.m. And it's a key platform for our communication. As I mentioned, the impacts can also be positive, not only negative. So our socioeconomic impacts, for example, in the upper picture in the right corner, you see the 3 main income or tax income sources to the municipality. If you put those together, the municipality in 22 or 21, the newest figures, or the newest study we have made, the tax income of the small municipality having only 9,000 inhabitants was 56 million euro. Out of that, TVO and Posiva paid 22 million euros. Because in Finnish system, the real estate tax goes to the municipality. So if you own a summer cottage or supermarket or nuclear power plant, you pay real estate tax, and that goes directly to the municipality. Also part of the company tax, if company produces profit, Posiva is not profit company, TVO is not profit company, Posiva Solutions is. We are also a big taxpayer in that municipality. And then of course people who work and pay taxes, part of the taxes go to the municipality. So our impact to the employment and regional economy is significant. And Eurajoki, our home municipality, has one of the lowest municipal tax rates in Finland. And they have schools, kindergartens, light traffic lanes, sport halls, whatever. It's a very popular municipality. Because as elsewhere in Finland as well, people tend to move to the bigger cities, so the small municipalities are suffering. But Eurajoki is an exception in that area because people are moving to Eurajoki. And you see also the employment development here in the lower picture. The uppermost light blue line is the employment development in Eurajoki, and then the red one is the whole Finland, and the lowermost is the region. I mean, kind of a county. It has something like 30 municipalities. So you see that Eurajoki is really thriving in that sense. And also that we do offer long-term stability. Both the nuclear power plants, Olkiluoto 3 will operate till 2083 or 2090 at least. We will operate to 2120, something like that. So we offer a long-term stability. And as I mentioned, contribution also to education, expertise development, and informed public acceptance is continuous. So I would say we have 3 shafts of success. It's not pillars because we go down, so it's shafts of success. And the first is trust and transparency. Transparency, you're exactly right, Patrick. If one is distributing information, that's not being transparent. Transparent is communicating understandably and actively. We have earned our trust during 50 years, and that's our most valuable asset. And we don't risk losing trust in any case. We can lose money, we can lose anything else, but we don't want to use trust, to lose trust. And then in the Finnish system, the authorities, not only nuclear regulator authorities, are they are trusted and they are independent. Processes are relatively clear, so people and stakeholders know when they have their say, how they can impact the processes ongoing, and they are listened. Authorities are as well interactive, so they answer to people if people ask. And the third one is, of course, people's own experience. We have only 60,000 people in the nearby city and a couple of nearby municipalities, 60,000 people. That means that during the last 50 years, everybody knows somebody who has worked in Olkiluoto Island or has worked there himself, herself. And if during 50 years these people would have gone home or to their friends, to their hobbies, and said that, no, my concerns were not listened today, I think the safety is not taken properly care of, something like that. So we would not need communication department because they cannot paint black to white. So our employees are our most important ambassadors. So everybody knows us and everybody knows what happens on the island. So just pointing out that we divide the expertise needed in DGR project into 8 main areas and some sub-areas there. And the most difficult one is nothing of these 7, it's the uppermost one. The public acceptance gained via stakeholder engagement. So that's the most important area, I would say. There are no technical problems. Everything can be solved. Theological problems can be solved. But people's opinions are the most demanding, challenging part of any DGR project. Good. Thank you for this opportunity.
네, 감사합니다. 오늘 포시바 솔루션스의 미카 포효넨 대표 이사님께서 정말 귀한 말씀 전해주셨는데요. 네, 방금 저희가 들었던 이 발표, 세계 최초로 사용 후 핵연료 연구 처분 시설을 현실로 만들어낸 핀란드, 그리고 그 중심에 있는 포시바 솔루션스의 생생한 경험을 들었습니다. 사실 이 사용 후 핵 연료 연구 처분이라는 과제는요, 그동안 이 전 세계 원자력 분야가 수십 년에 걸쳐서 고민해 왔지만 그 누구도 쉽게 마침표를 찍지 못했던 어려운 숙제긴 했습니다. 그런 가운데 핀란드가 이를 실제 현실로 구현해냈다는 사실은 그 자체로 정말로 역사적인 이정표라고 볼 수가 있겠는데요. 네, 그럼 이어서 이제 국제적인 시선으로 한번 눈을 돌려보겠습니다. 마지막 발표 세션으로 국제기구 OECD와 NEA의 이야기가 준비되어 있는데요. 지금까지 일본, 캐나다, 프랑스, 스웨덴, 스위스, 핀란드 이렇게 총 6나라의 이야기를 함께 살펴봤습니다. 이번에는 개별 국가의 경험을 넘어서 국제사회가 공유하고 있는 공통 원칙 그리고 정책적인 방향을 살펴볼 차례입니다. 고준위 방사성 폐기물 관리에서 가장 중요한 요소로 꼽히는 투명한 정보 공개, 이해관계자 참여, 그리고 양방향 소통, 사회적 합의는 국제적으로 어떻게 정의되고 있고 또 어떤 기준과 원칙 아래에 추진이 되고 있는지 살펴볼 시간입니다. 오늘 발표를 통해서 각국의 경험 속에서 반복적으로 확인됐던 성공 요인 그리고 국제사회 공고 사항을 함께 살펴보실 수 있겠습니다. 네, 그럼 무대 위쪽으로 모셔볼 텐데요. OECD NEA 이해 관계자 참여 분야 선임 전문가이신 한나 로맨스님 먼저 앞쪽으로 모시겠습니다. 여러분 따뜻한 박수로 환영해 주시기 바랍니다. We'd like to welcome Ms. Anna Romans, Senior Expert on Stakeholder Engagement at the OECD Nuclear Energy Agency. Please welcome her with a big round of applause once again. 여러분 다시 한 번 더 큰 박수 부탁드리겠습니다.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here with you today and to present a little bit about the NEA's Forum on Stakeholder Confidence. And this is one of our working groups that works on stakeholder engagement related to waste management, decommissioning, and legacy management. My name is Hannah Ramses, and I'm a stakeholder engagement specialist with the Division of Radiological Protection and Human Aspects of Nuclear Safety at the NEA. And I'm also the technical secretary for what we call the FSC. So to give a bit of an overview of what I'll talk to you today about is overall the working operations of the FSC that focus on exchanging experiences related to stakeholder engagement programs in various radioactive waste management organizations across the world and reviewing the experience of stakeholder involvement programs worldwide. And I will give you an overview of the FSC's experience in hosting national workshops, supporting stakeholder engagement across member countries, advancing its work through specific task groups, as well as sharing lessons learned across its programs. So, what is the FSC? It has many objectives, as you can see on this slide, but overall it functions as an international platform for member countries to exchange with one another on their experiences in building and maintaining confidence among stakeholders related to radioactive waste management projects, as well as providing a diverse and supportive platform for FSC members to exchange with one another, to learn together, as well as exchange with stakeholders and members of civil society and the academic community together in dialogue. It also advises on major and emerging issues of interest and provides recommendations. And the overall working methods of this group are task group that focus on specific thematic areas of interest, annual plenary meetings that report back each year on the status of work, as well as our annual national workshops, which highlight specific member country efforts related to stakeholder engagement through a multi-day workshop on the margins of our plenary meetings each year. So first I'll go over what our national workshops look like and some key insights that have arisen over the years, as there has been many, and the FSC has now been around for about 25 years. So our national workshops really function to bring FSC members to specific national contexts and they anchor discussions in reality by taking the FSC members to active sites, allowing their direct observation of technical, social, political dynamics during the siting and development of final repositories for radioactive waste. These workshops allow for direct exchange with local stakeholders, as they are not limited to just FSC members, but rather create a stakeholder interface between civil society, implementers, regulators, local authorities, and community representatives involved in the implementation of projects all together in the same space. So it functions primarily as an opportunity for peer exchange and learning, as it enables the host country of a national workshop to receive practical in-person feedback, and it allows those participants to learn from the experiences of others. And it is a two-way exchange in that respect. It facilitates learning from not only the successes of host groups, but also learning from the challenges. A couple of examples that have come up over the years include dealing with opposition, the role of stakeholder fatigue, communicating uncertainty, as well as operating effective engagement across long-term timeframes of projects. It also supports general policy reflection by attendees by linking the local experience to national governance frameworks. The workshops also exemplify stakeholder engagement in practice and showcase the concrete tools of the host countries and the mechanisms that they are using to engage stakeholders, such as visitor centers, the use of local committees and public debates, and specific outreach programs. We heard from our colleagues from ANDRA yesterday about their CZO project, but we had the pleasure last year of having our 2025 national workshop take place at the CGO project in Burg, hosted by ANDRA. And this was a really interesting opportunity where members could visit both the underground laboratory and the environmental specimen bank of the CGO project and learn about the initiatives that they've implemented to strengthen the attractiveness of their information and their visitor center over the years to promote meaningful dialogue. And we had local stakeholders participate alongside 13 different FSC member countries at this event. And it really demonstrated how ANDRA built trust over the decades that they've been present in Burg, and their continuous efforts for fostering meaningful engagement as the process and the project has evolved. And we look forward for our 2026 edition, hosted by our colleagues from NUMO in Japan at the end of October. So throughout our national workshop series, a number of insights have arisen from the discussions between FSC members and local communities. The first being engagement as an iterative process, which encompasses many components, not limited to creating an interest and visibility around the project through the use of outreach campaigns to draw visitors, informing and explaining the nature and details of the project via exhibitions, public information centers, and technical explanations with accessible information. The need to conduct dialogue, as well as consulting through the formal regulatory consultations, but also having informal dialogue sessions in conjunction with formal processes to give the opportunity for stakeholders to voice their opinions in more informal settings. And as well as the need for organizations to participate meaningfully in local life, whether that be hosting open days, employing locals within the project, as well as having a long-term presence in the region. All of these elements fostered the key message from the group that engagement is really not a linear process, as other colleagues have iterated in their presentations thus far, but rather it's iterative, adaptive, and evolves with the stakeholder expectations and project milestones. The workshops have also emphasized the role of physical spaces and the importance that they have for educating stakeholders and engaging with them meaningfully. Our members have dedicated much time to discussing visitor centers and the role that they play and the use that they have in educating local members of the community, as well as the implementation of community hubs as spaces for dialogue. One example includes Tableau Center in Belgium, which was highlighted as both a visitor center, a cultural space, and a meeting place for external stakeholders to meet with experts in an informal setting around a table to discuss the radioactive waste repository in a very informal setting. Operational sites have also been discussed as potential learning environments where local community members are able to tour the facility and use the facility as a visitor experience, such as Spain's El Cabril facility, in which they used viewing points within the operational facility to educate the public and use VR tools to present information in a visible and accessible way. It's also been mentioned that open days and face-to-face interactions with organizations are important to supplement physical spaces, to create open communication channels and build familiarity with project staff and the public. FSC members have also used mobile and outreach formats such as traveling exhibitions, school activities, and site visits and workshops to bring the project to the communities rather than always expecting communities to come to you. In terms of working with the communities, the workshops have had some key takeaways related to creating direct human interaction as a best practice through personal relationships and fostering connections between staff and the community to kind of humanize a project and humanize institutions and reduce perceptions of distance between community members and certain projects. It's also been recommended that access to expertise and information is readily available for projects as communities need access to independent, credible, and understandable information. Member countries have noted that local information committees have been useful in enabling actors to ask technical questions, to discuss one-on-one with independent experts, as well as review complex safety documentation so that they have the agency to review the information for themselves. And we've discussed a lot about transparency, but it came up again within the context of these workshops in that transparency must be continuous and adaptive and not limited to just key project milestones, which includes giving the opportunity for stakeholders to repeatedly ask questions over time and receive updated information as the project advances, and having consultation processes occur at multiple stages. And by doing so, transparency can therefore build credibility and lessen uncertainty as well. Some key challenges have come up over the course of our workshops, which persist across different national contexts, which include the challenge of stakeholder turnover when we have new politicians that need to be reinformed as leadership changes happen. The presence of community division where there may be both strong support for a project in conjunction with organized opposition that may make public debates challenging. Navigating complexity and uncertainty and difficulty explaining certain concepts such as reversibility without raising new safety concerns, as well as navigating media and political cycles as attention increases during consultations or authorization phases. The economic development and its role and trust also comes up in our discussions quite a lot, as it's seen as an important factor to support regional development via investment in infrastructure, jobs, and training, but also maintaining a distinction and separation in the conversations from safety, where safety should be emphasized first before discussing compensation. It also has reinforced that discussions around economic development should focus on the long-term value, such as developing skills, investing in local businesses, and territorial projects, and the need to manage perceptions around economic development, as benefits can often be questioned or seen as uneven or imposed, and thus the key message of economic support being helpful, but also not the only element to build trust, which also depends on legitimacy and transparency. So within our national workshops, a lot of discussion is focused on what local dialogue structures exist in different national contexts. Members have given their experiences conducting local committees, public debates, participatory forums such as workshops and local meetings with stakeholders, as well as the implementation of continuous engagement spaces such as visitor centers. And it is seen that these permanent dialogue structures really help to foster trust rather than having one-off consultations. So beyond our workshops, we have other working methods within the FSC, otherwise known as our task groups, which are focused on 3 specific thematic areas, those being youth involvement, decommissioning and legacy management, and perceptions and narratives. And the work on these topics is intercessional throughout the year, in addition to our annual meetings and our national workshops. And the first group is focused on youth involvement. And the specific focus of this group is really exchanging between the FSC members on the strategies that they are using to engage youth. And there is a variety of approaches across national contexts. So it's very interesting for this group to share those experiences between one another and the key insights that have resulted for their efforts. The group has put together a webinar series on youth involvement featuring case studies from various national contexts. Last year we had a webinar focused on cases from the United Kingdom and Japan, and this year we'll have another edition with insights from Belgium and Germany. And they've also put together a publication for best practices for youth involvement. And some of the key insights arising from their work thus far has been that radioactive waste management organizations should actively approach the next generation in a way that's adapted to their environment, to their ways of communicating, and to their age, which is a different strategy than you might do for older generations. And they've noted that youth is very important to be included at each step of the nuclear energy program, but really the long-term time frames that are associated with waste management make it particularly important for strong engagement of younger generations. They've also found that successful communication at a very early stage, especially in schools with children, can help inform youth and continue the dialogue early, particularly on social media, as they tend to prefer that as a way of sharing information, and promotes them to consider also radioactive waste management as a potential career choice in the future. Members have also shared their creative communication methods for engaging youth, which include many different formats such as board games, computer games, partnerships with social media, influencers, universities, youth associations, implementation of podcasts. There's a distinct variety of approaches in this respect. So it's a very interesting group to hear about the variety of strategies that each group is taking. The second group focuses on decommissioning and legacy management and the nuances and complexities associated with this topic. And they have particularly focused on a variety of elements, not limited to linking decommissioning and legacy management to the broader nuclear narrative, but also establishing future land uses, navigating future land uses, bringing value in offsetting site closure, as well as addressing the role of cultural heritage and conservation, and communicating complexity, among others. They're working also to put together a publication on best practices related to stakeholder involvement in decommissioning and waste management. But they've noted overall in their work thus far that decommissioning involves complex technical and social challenges, especially due to the diversity of the site types and historical lack of stakeholder engagement in this area. They've noted that ongoing communication and monitoring are essential to maintain accurate site knowledge, manage residual contamination, and involve communities in stewardship and access decisions. They also emphasize the need to engage stakeholders early and focus on future site uses can enhance trust, facilitate approvals, and ensure that community interests shape remediation efforts. The third and final group that we have is focused on perceptions and narratives, a bit more of a broader topic, as it focuses on the complexities of individual perception and how that may affect a narrative that one is trying to communicate to a stakeholder. They're currently working towards putting a publication together on the use of art to communicate about radioactive waste. And their work thus far has found that factors that influence individual perceptions can make it so that a communicator's intended narrative is not necessarily the message that the stakeholder takes away from the conversation. They're focusing on analyzing the social aspects that influence perception, including learning style, demographics, peer groups, social media, as well as societal factors and cultural values. And they've noted that when developing a narrative, it's important to consider how a stakeholder's general worldview may affect how they receive information that you are communicating. In addition to these three groups, there are a number of emerging topics that have come up in the context of FSC discussions, such as the role of waste for new nuclear and SMRs, transport as a sensitive issue for many countries, potential waste communication gaps, as well as program transition and how, when you move from planning to licensing, how that changes expectations, as well as stakeholders. And overall, through the discussions and the work of the FSC, we've had a couple of cross-cutting lessons over the years as it's become apparent that engagement is a governance function, not just communication strategy, but a key part of decision-making, that trust is a very long-term process and it's built over decades and with consistency. That dialogue must be continuous and repeated interactions with evolving stakeholders are necessary throughout a project lifecycle. And most importantly, as we are an international forum for exchange, that context matters and approaches differ by country, culture, and project stage. And thus there, as my colleagues have also reiterated in their presentations, there's no one-size-fits-all approach, really, but engagement must be adaptive and context-specific. So overall, the value added of the FSC is really fostering a community of practice and offering a safe space for exchange for members to seek feedback from one another, to share their experiences, to engage with local stakeholders, and offer concrete examples of how countries are implementing their stakeholder engagement activities. As one of our members recently said, this is like professional therapy. So that's what we like to hear from them as a useful means for them to engage and get feedback on their programs in a very friendly and informal manner. And overall, the key takeaways from this group is that early and sustained stakeholder engagement is necessary. Engagement must be continuous with the integration of both the social and technical perspectives, and that trust is built over time and is done so with transparency, dedicated presence, and meaningful participation. And that is all I have for you today. Thank you very much for your attention, and welcome new members at any time.
네, 감사합니다. OECD 원자력 기구 NEA의 한나 로베스 선임 전문가님께서 오늘 의미 있는 발표를 해주셨는데요. 이해관계자 신뢰 포럼, 그러니까 FSC라고 말씀을 해주셨습니다. 이 FSC가 걸어온 그 길과 그 값진 교훈에 대해서 저희가 들을 수 있었습니다. 지난 2000년에 설립이 돼서 약 25년간, 아까 발표 중에도 말씀 주셨는데요. 약 25년간 운영을 하면서 전 세계 경험을 함께 나누어온 국제적인 학습의 장으로 운영이 되고 있었습니다. 네, 이 방사성 폐기물 관리가 단지 기술의 문제가 아니라 사회적 차원의 과제이기도 하다라는 인식하에 정말 다양한 프로그램을 운영하고 있는 걸 확인할 수 있었는데요. 이번 발표에서는 사용 후 핵 연료 관리부터 최종 처분에 이르는 전 과정에서 국제사회가 강조하는 소통 원칙과 또 각국 사례에 대한 분석을 중심으로 이야기를 나눠주실 분 무대 위쪽으로 모시겠습니다. 네, 무대 위쪽으로 모시겠습니다. OECD NEA 방패물 관리국장 레베카 타데스님 모시겠습니다. 여러분 큰 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. It's my honor to welcome Ms. Rebecca Tades, Head of the Radioactive Waste Management Division at the OECD Nuclear Energy Agency.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here and present to you. My presentation is a little bit different than what you've been listening for the last 2 days. I'm going to be focusing more on how do you use safety case and also peer reviews to be building trust and stakeholders throughout the process. So to just give you a context, NEA has 8 technical standing committees that looks at basically from nuclear science all the way to disposal. And our goal is that we look at things more holistically and support member countries to develop their programs throughout the process. So what does our WMC, the Radioactive Waste Management Committee has been around since 1973, and it's been supporting member countries for development of their DGR programs, to develop safety case, to develop regulatory implementer dialogues. So there's a number of groups that supports these activities, and also how do we bring knowledge management into this field, because as you would expect, that's intergenerational. So what are the things that needs to be considered to be going through the process? And also, how do we use new technologies to support us in the development? And there's also a committee that is more focused on decommissioning and legacy management. The FSC is part of the RWMC structure where they support, basically they get their guidance from the committee, and it supports them to identify the areas that needs to be worked on. I will focus on the IGSC, which is the Integrated Safety Case group that has been around also since 2000. They've been working on how do we develop safety case, what are the things that are concerned for member countries, how do we communicate safety case to the member public and as well as other stakeholders. And they have a number of groups that looks at crystalline, clay, salt, and also looking at the groups that deals with operational safety. In addition to that, now they're really focusing into a graded approach for waste disposal, some of the waste that is not high-level waste, but intermediate level waste, and how do we address those issues. And knowledge management, as I said, is not only just the current generation that we need to be concerned about, but we also have to think about 2, 3, 4 generations ahead, and what are the things that we need to do to address those challenges. So all our activities, we try to look at holistically. What that means is that not only do we look at the technical aspect, we look at the social aspect, the economical aspect, and so that we're making decisions that's informed. And that's the role of the FSC that brings in IGSC, the safety case development, and groups that helps to develop that, and also looking at the economic aspect of it, because all of it has to work together to be a successful program. And in terms of technologies, we spend a lot of time trying to identify how do we bring technologies from different industries, the aviation industry, from the automotive industry, to support development of these technologies to support DGRs and also other activities. And how do they cost-benefit analysis of those activities to support these uses of these materials. So focusing on safety case is a tool that you could use to communicate not only to the public, but also to other stakeholders such as policymakers and municipalities and things like that. So the safety case, the IGSC has been working, as I said, since 2000. The first 7 years, they focused on what is needed in a safety case. What are the things that we need to consider? What is the role of biosphere? What does safety case look like? Retrievability, monitoring, timescale. All of these topics were the ones that they've been working on and discussing and identifying solutions throughout the process. And then from 2008 to 2013, how do we deliver safety? And that is, when you're going to public meetings and the questions are about safety and how are you demonstrating that safety? How comfortable are you? What are the uncertainties? So what are the organizational issues? They've been working on those topics for a while, things like the MESA project, operational safety. And all of these activities, I want to, as Finland is going through operation, Switzerland and Sweden, all of those members are in this group that are been developing these indicators and projects. And then since 2014, we've been trying to work on how do you build confidence in safety and extreme events, geological events that could happen. What is the demonstration of repository technology? How comfortable are we? What are the criticality, safety, and safeguards that needs to be considered? And then also updating safety case, how do we address those issues? And they do this throughout meetings, workshops, conferences. If you remember, 2 years ago, we had the ICGR conference in Busan to talk about all the successes that we've had and also what are the challenges that we're facing and how do we address those challenges. So bringing it back to the Forum for Stakeholder Confidence, there's a number of publications that have been published through the forum, and as Hannah talked a lot about it, is that, what are the things that are interested, confidence building, added value, and there was a lot of discussion yesterday. It's like, is money the only thing that is necessary to get a facility be permitted? That's not the case. When we've done a lot of the studies, the added value is about building infrastructure for the community, developing programs and educational programs and things like that. So there is a publication on that. But to give you a very specific example, IGSC and FSC had a workshop in 2002 that was in Switzerland, and that was to build confidence in the face of uncertainty, the role of safety case. And this was really to understand the different perspective of risk, improving communication on safety case, facilitating stakeholder engagement and safety case, and also understanding what people are concerned about. They've had these number of joint workshops to address specific issues, and this one in particular was interesting because they really brought stakeholders from Switzerland and asked them, what are your concerns? And what are your concerns? What do you believe, what characteristics or behavior do you not find trustworthy? Which type of uncertainty is perceived most critical? And does the safety case offer possibility for populations citing regional affected by geological repository? These were the type of questions that they were asking. And the outcome of that was that, let's go through. So to build trust, each must understand each other's concerns. And expert members of the public have different levels of understanding and area of interest. Improve scientific understanding, community creates trust, strong safety case. And to build trust, you need to have not only the experts of those assessing safety case, but also needs to be having the organization to be respected as well. And, I can give you an example. I've been at a public meeting and, people ask me what's the uncertainty, and I say 10 to minus 7. What does that mean? We need to be able to communicate those type of terms to mean to the person, what 10 to minus 7 is the likelihood of something happening. I need to be able to explain it in a way that somebody will understand it. So really to build trust, you need to understand what the community needs. You need to understand the competency of your stakeholders and also yourself, and also to be able to be authentic, to say I don't know when you don't know something. You don't have to answer everything. It's just, but I don't know, but I'll get back to you. Those are the type of tools that we need to experience and work together to address. We also have the IGSC group built a new group that is the next generation. This group is really to support professional development, integrating emerging voices to safety case community, promote structural knowledge transfer, build diverse professional network, and enhance visibility and awareness. And this group has been, they were formed 2 years ago, and they already have pamphlets that they have published. They have webinars that are planned. So they're quite active, and it's really important because the person that's developing the safety case is not the one that's going to be implementing that safety case. So we really need to have that intergenerational experience to build, and this is a format where we will be able to support those experiences. And one of the things that really we've done well is that any conference that we have a session for the young generation. In addition to that, we incorporate them into the program such that they are moderators and also supporting the formation of those programs. So that way it gives them the opportunity to have those experiences. So the different clubs, of course, have a number of products that they produce every year. Clay Club has been around also for about 20 years. Salt Club, they have their meetings and information you can find. And then we do something that is a little bit different. We do peer reviews. And when a country is at a position where they feel like an international expert can come and do a review of their work, we have done a number of them in the last years. We've been doing it for 20 years, so whether Sweden or Finland, they've had it. But the last two that we've done was in Switzerland and also in Japan. The Japan was on the pre-site. This is a site descriptive model-based safety case that was developed, and we brought together experts on siting, geologists, and we had about 10 experts, and to look at what are the areas that needs to be addressed and how does that support the stepwise development of a DGR. So we had 10 experts from international different organizations, and those experts, one of the criteria that we use is that they cannot be actively involved in any of the activities that that country has been working for the past 5 years. So that gives you that fuel independency, and they come together and review their documents, review their studies and platforms, and then they develop a report, and we go out, and the first time the report is seen by NUMO is when we're doing the public meeting. So the true independency shows that we'll be able to communicate what we see, what are the things that we can suggest, how do they improve their activities, and this was done in 2022. And then we, as Patrick just mentioned earlier, that NAGRA submitted their general license application on early last year, I guess, and we were asked by the ministry and ANSI to do a review as well. So we followed the same process with independent evaluation of the quality of the safety case and the long-term safety assessment presented by NAGRA, and again, the same process where we make sure that the participants were not ever involved in those projects. The results are still being published. It will be out sometime in the next year. But we had quite a number of documents, as he said, 30,000. It was actually 30,000. So it was quite intense review process, and top level consists of the safety report on site selection, and also the security. And our experts were able to review the depth of the reports and understanding, and came up with recommendations, and so that should be published. So those are the type of things that you could utilize to build confidence with your member public and all stakeholders, your selected officials, to show them that there's an independent review process that could be utilized to show safety. In addition to that, we work with what we call RID, which is Regulator Implementer Dialogue. This is a group, sorry, my allergies. As you say that there's communication with the public, there's also communication issues with regulator and implementer. And how do we improve those engagement and still keep the regulator independency, but have the opportunity in pre-licensing space that have the communication between the operator and also the regulator, and talk about the challenges and develop the pathways for those communication, and also have the ability to communicate that with the public such that the public understands that there's no backroom decisions that are being made that is not open or transparent to the public. So this group has been around since 2019, and they've been really trying to address what are the technical issues, what are the challenges, how do we make to be able to communicate this information, The one thing that everybody needs to understand is that the regulator is not helping to develop the safety case or site selection or any of those activities. What they're doing is that they're providing guidance, what the requirements are for getting to a site-specific permitting or authorities that needs to be addressed. So from that, we have we've had a number of workshops, and we've developed a regulator implementer dialogue pre-licensing phase. What are the tools that they could use, and how do we address those challenges to make sure that the independence of the regulator is secured and the public has that confidence, but still have the ability to communicate with the operator. So we had the first report. The first report really focused on what are the roles and responsibility of each entity, and how does the public get the ability to see those defined roles. And I think this is available, the licensing process, regulatory framework, advice, knowledge related to the development of implementation. Each of those are the responsibility from the regulator perspective and also from the implementer perspective. And really what we identified is like legislative framework needs to guarantee that the independence of the regulator, and needs to have a clear definition and roles and responsibility. Regulator does not directly contribute to developing the concept of the design of the facility or responsibility of safety. Regulator at task evaluating and raising topics that need further work, and also technical expertise, and needs to keep the independency. But how does that fit with the public? So what we identified is that a lot of times a regulator will say, well, my transparency is so important that I cannot communicate with the implementer. But we can have those communication, still have the public be present at a certain point to have that during the dialogue, that they will have the opportunity to ask questions and be able to answer. So communicating updates on the concept of repository and site design, ensuring transparent and accessible process for dialogue, communicating clear the division of roles to the public so that people understand, and also providing reliable, understandable information. And then, of course, the independence of a regulator is always important. And how do you engage the public during those forums? I can give you an example. In the US, we used to have these monthly meetings during the Yucca Mountain development. And at that time, there's a period where there is a meeting with DOE and the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. It's open to the public, and when there is a specific sensitive information, that part of the meeting gets closed, but it is informed to the public that it is closed because of security issue or proprietary information. So there's methods to have those relationships and have it open to the public. And that is the type of things that we're trying to develop within NEA, is that the platform to have those dialogues, and what are the best practices for countries to utilize these methods. We have a second report. I don't think I'll go through the specific activities, but it's also will be coming up soon. And this really talks about behavioral capabilities, attitudes, behavior of a regulator, developing program-specific roadmap. Each country should have that, strengthening program-specific capability, implementation program, and also measuring, evaluating these progresses within those period of time before pre-licensing communications. And it should be published in the next few weeks, hopefully. And last but not least, we have regional and sometimes national workshop. There's another one coming up, which would be country-specific workshop on Norway, and it's called Governance in Developing Radioactive Waste Solutions, and it's in November of this year. It is being hosted by the Norwegian Radiation Protection Agency. and also the decommissioning agency. So this will give an opportunity where we can really dive into a specific country's experience, how to do the dialogues, and be able to support activities. And if you're interested, please let us know, and we'll love to have you there. That's my last. Thank you very much.
네, 레베카 타네스 국장님께서 오늘 마지막 발표를 해주셨습니다. 네, 이렇게 오늘 OECD NEA의 관점까지 들어봤는데요. 저희는 잠시 휴식 시간을 가진 후에 이제 청중과의 대화 시간으로 넘어가겠습니다. 이틀 동안 정말 다양한 해외 사례와 경험을 함께 살펴봤습니다. 발표를 들으시면서 궁금하셨던 점, 그리고 연사님께 궁금한 점 저희가 잠시 후에 화면에 QR코드로 띄워드릴 테니까요. 거기 명찰에 있는 실명으로 오늘 질문 작성해 주시면 저희가 청중과의 대화 시간에 또 깊이 있게 다뤄드리겠습니다. 네, 그럼 저희는 10분간 휴식 시간을 가진 후에 뵙겠습니다. 감사합니다. 잠시 안내 말씀 드리겠습니다. 저희가 잠시 후에 청중과의 대화 시간이 시작될 예정입니다. 참석자 여러분들은 안쪽으로 들어오셔서 착석 부탁드리겠습니다. And our last Q&A session will begin shortly. We cordially ask all participants to enter the hall once again and take your seat. Thank you for your cooperation. See you soon. And I'd like to invite today's speakers from Switzerland, Finland, and OECD NEA up to the stage for the Q&A session. And I'd like to ask you to bring your interpretations device, just in case, because I have to conduct this symposium in Korean. For the convenience, I will conduct the symposium in Korean, but thankfully I can speak English at the same time. 네, 여러분 지금부터 청중과의 대화 시간을 시작해 보겠습니다. 이틀간에 걸쳐서 6개 국가 그리고 OECD NEA의 경험까지 저희가 함께 살펴봤는데요. 부지 선정부터 지역 사회와의 소통 그리고 연구 처분 시설 확보에 이르기까지 각 나라가 걸어온 여정은 결국 우리가 앞으로 이어나가야 할 긴 시간의 과제를 함께 생각해 볼 수 있는 소중한 시간이었습니다. 네, 오늘 마지막 프로그램이죠. 청중과의 대화 시간에서는 귀한 발표 들려주신 연사님들께서 모두 무대에 자리를 해주셨습니다. 여러분 다시 한 번 더 큰 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. 네, 여러분들께서 보내주신 질문으로 오늘 프로그램을 구성을 해볼 텐데요. 어제도 정말 다양한 질문들을 해주셨고 또 연사님들께서 따뜻한 답변 보내주셨습니다. 또 오늘은 어떤 질문들을 해주셨을지 저희가 하나씩 살펴보겠습니다. 네, 먼저 첫 번째 질문인데요. 정석환님께서 보내주셨습니다. 각국 SMR, HDGR, MSR을 포함해서 사용 후 핵 연료 운반, 저장, 처분 관련 연구 개발 현황은 어떠한가요? 라는 질문을 해주셨습니다. 저희 혹시 대답을 해주실 수 있는 연사님 계시면 손 들어주시면 저희 직원분이 마이크 전달 드릴 예정이거든요. Yes, we'll hand over the microphone.
The RWMC, the Radioactive Waste Management Committee, has started looking at what are the transportation requirements and also the waste disposal from the advanced reactors. But in addition to that, we have a joint project where we call it WIZR, and Korea is part of that. CARI and KHNP is part of that program. And we're looking at each of the fuel type, the molten salt, lead-cooled reactors, also looking at HCGR, TRISO fuels, and walking them through both reprocessing, treatment, storage, transportation, and the ability to be able to dispose of it with the current deep geological repository systems. And so we're looking at crystalline, we're looking at salt and clay. So we're at early stage, and we are just getting the information from the vendors on the characteristics of the fuel. And now we will be starting to do more of the study thoroughly. And so that's a closed project, but also the Radioactive Waste Management Committee did a gap analysis, and we will be starting to look at how to address those challenges. So we have the vendors, we have the transportation organizations, we have the disposal, VTT is also part of that, so that they will be able to look at the different case studies using generic waste acceptance criteria. So there are some work that is being done, and we'll continue to look at it and see if there are any challenges that we need to address.
네, 감사합니다. 한 가지 말씀을 드리면 오늘 마이크를 먼저 선정하시는 분이 말씀을 하시게 되는 거니까 혹시 답변을 주시고 싶으시면 편하게 손을 들어주시면 되겠고요. 그리고 제가 중요한 거를 하나 말씀을 못 드렸는데 오늘 연사님들께서 큰 책임을 지고 계십니다. 왜냐하면 오늘 베스트 퀘스천을 뽑아주셔야 돼요. 그분께는 저희가 스마트워치를 선물로 드릴 예정이라서 오늘 나왔던 질문 중에 가장 기억에 남거나 인상 깊었던 거를 다 끝나고 나서 함께 한 분을 골라주시면 되니까 그거 한번 참고해서 진행해 주시면 감사하겠습니다. 네, 여러분 답변 감사합니다. 여러분 큰 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. 네, 이어서 다음 질문으로 넘어가겠습니다. 네, 다음 질문인데요. OECD NEA의 위저드 프로젝트는 어떤 프로그램이며 현재 진전 상황은 어떠한가요? 라고 정석환님께서 질문을 주셨습니다. 혹시 한 번 더 답변 부탁드려도 될까요?
Yes, the Wizard program is a joint project. Is we bring different entities that are interested to work together in a closed environment and looking at a very specific question. And what Wizard is trying to do is to look at the advanced reactor fuel from the back-end perspective. And we have 11 members that are participating, and then we have third parties, which all of the transportation organizations and research institutes that participate. And they are working on, right now, they just finished on getting the characteristics of the spent fuel. Of course, not all of the spent fuel is results from research data, but it's theoretical and looking at doing SERPIN analysis and things like that, and also looking at the old data from let's say Oak Ridge National Laboratories and others. And once we have those data, we are going to be there's 6 phases. Phase 1, it was the characterization. Phase 2, looking at recycling. Phase 3 and 4 is transportation and storage, and phase 5 is disposal. And then we have looking at the whole system to see what are the economic impact and regulatory impact. So we are on the first phase. We just finished getting the characteristics, and we're going to have a workshop in Korea, actually, in November on the recycling part of it. So we're very active and working towards understanding all of the different fuel types.
네, 감사합니다. 여러분 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. 네, 이어서 다음 질문 보겠습니다. 저희 3번째 질문인데요. 네, 김소라님께서 질문을 해주셨습니다. 여러 국가는 주민 수용성이 넘어가 버렸네요. 네, 김소라님께서 여러 국가에서는 주민 수용성 확보 결과를 정량적 수치로 제시해 주셨는데요. 구체적인 조사 방법과 리서치 결과의 신뢰성 확보 방안에 대해 알려주시면 감사하겠습니다. 대면으로 했는지 비대면으로 했는지 조사 대상자 선정 방법이나 조사 빈도와 같은 내용을 좀 궁금해하셨습니다. 정량적 수치를 어떻게 조사하셨는지 좀 여쭤보신 것 같아요. 네.
Yes, we've been doing this for about 15 years, and we do it every 3 or 4 years. But we don't do it on our own, of course. We do it with an agency that is specialized in it. And I don't know the exact methodology they use, but yeah, it's scientific and it's professional. And we always ask the same question, so we have a picture of the developments of the acceptance. And yes, and we see that the acceptance has become bigger and higher in the last years. And yes, it's on a scientific basis, and yes, we do it every 3 or 4 years. And yeah, it has to be representative, and for us it's a very important tool.
Thank you very much. 네, 여러분 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. 네, 이렇게 오늘 어떻게 정량적 수치를 조사했는지에 관해서 답변을 주셨는데요. 이 과학적 근거를 바탕으로 해주셨다라는 답변을 해주셨습니다. 네, 이어서 다음 질문 넘어가 보겠습니다. 저희 4번째 질문인데요. 네, 아까 잠깐 나왔었죠. 김민균님께서 해주셨습니다. 전문적, 기술적인 내용을 사람들에게 이해하기 쉽게 전달하기 위한 방법으로 무엇을 사용하셨나요? 사실 이 주제가 가볍지만은 않기 때문에 사람들에게 이제 어떻게 조금 더 가깝게 다가가기 위한 전략을 사용하셨는지 이런 거 한번 설명 혹시 해 주실 수 있으면 한번 부탁드리겠습니다.
Okay, maybe I can answer on behalf of Posiva here. Basically, one can always simplify any information. I consider that as a pyramid. So the top of the pyramid there is yes or no, and the next level there is few sentences, etc., etc. So all information can be communicated in different levels. And what we use is that communication people and our stakeholder engagement people are interpreting the scientists' messages so that they are not scientists in that area themselves. So if they don't understand, the receiver don't understand. So this is a very simple and robust methodology.
Yes, one more. Can you please hand over the microphone?
From our experience in the FSC, a lot of our members have noted that visual tools are often really useful for communicating complex information in a simple way. For example, the use of models, demonstrating a project within visitor centers, the use of virtual reality tools also to demonstrate in person what things might look like in practice, as well as the use of art to communicate and convey emotions around radioactive waste in a more abstract way, but to kind of influence and start conversations based on emotion are also interesting and useful tools that some of our members have noted.
네, 인상적인 답변을 주셨는데요. 좀 예술적인 분야도 활용을 하고 또 VR 도구와 같은 것을 이용해서 데모 모델을 만들어서 그리고 역시 시각적인 자료가 사람들에게 가장 이해하기 쉽게 전달될 수 있지 않나라는 말씀을 해주셨습니다. 네, 이렇게 다양한 방식으로 사람들에게 좀 더 가깝게 다가가고 있다고 했는데요. 여러분 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. 네, 이어서 다음 질문 넘어가 보겠습니다. 네, 한국은 핀란드에 비해 핀란드 연사님께 아무래도 질문을 드리는 것 같습니다. 한국은 핀란드에 비해 국토 면적 3분의 1의 수준, 인구는 약 9배, 인구 밀도는 28배, 운영 원전 5배 이상으로 소통해야 할 이해 관계자 수와 밀도에서 큰 차이가 있는데 소통의 시간과 또 방법에 미치는 영향, 핵심 소통 전략에 대한 조언을 부탁드렸습니다. 남경철님께서 주셨습니다.
Well, I feel I'm not very specialist in Korean conditions, but you are very well aware of the tools available, and then you can best adjust those tools, use of those tools to your conditions. There are more people and more dense population, but I think the same fundamentals apply. So I trust that CORAD experts are best people to answer this.
네, 감사합니다. 저희 한국에도 전문가분들이 많이 계시잖아요. 아마 오늘과 같은 어제와 오늘 했던 이런 소통 콘테스트에서 나눠주신 경험을 바탕으로 한국의 전문가분들이 그 누구보다 잘 해낼 것이라고 믿어 의심치 않는다는 말씀 전해주셨습니다. 네, 여러분 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. 네, 이어서 다음 질문 하겠습니다. 네, 어제 오늘 들으면서 대화가 중요한 요소 중 하나인 듯한데요. 그 과정이 단기적이 아닌 장기적이고 설득하는 과정에서 여러 어려움 또한 있을 것으로 예상되는데 어떤 마음가짐이나 신념을 가지면 좋을지 조언 부탁드리겠습니다. 라고 박현준님께서 질문을 주셨습니다. 어제도 비슷한 내용이 나오긴 했어요. 사람들을 설득하는 과정에 있어서 혹시 이런 부분을 가장 신경 썼으면 좋겠다라고 혹시 한 말씀 전해주실 수 있을까요?
Well, I guess I have to say the same thing as I said about transparency. Just do it. Talk together all the time. Do not talk about dialogue, talk together and don't stop and go on. And yes, it takes time, but yes, that's how it is. It takes the time it takes. And be patient and don't stop talking. It's quite easy, I would say.
네, 정말 심플하지만 명확한 답입니다. 어제도 똑같이 말씀해 주셨어요. 소통의 비결이 있나요? 여쭤봤더니 어제도 투명성을 이야기해 주셨고 오늘도 또 투명성을 이야기해 주셨습니다. 그리고 매우 길겠지만 끊임없는 대화를 해야 한다라는 말씀까지 해주셨습니다. 네, 여러분 다시 한 번 더 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. 네, 이어서 다음 질문 보겠습니다. 오늘 또 핀란드에 질문을 주셨어요. 과거 EIA를 2번이나 했는데 첫 번째 새로운 원전의 건설에 따른 발생량 때문인 건지 아니면 주민의 소통과 같은 다른 사유가 있었는지 여쭤보셨습니다.
In the Finnish application of the EU Directive of Environmental Impact Assessment, and I think it is also in the directive, is stated that project proponent must carry out EIA process, but if then later the project changes essentially, if there is a big change in the project, then the EIA must be repeated for the change or the changed project. And at that time, our original volume of waste was something, I don't remember the exact amount, but then Olkiluoto 3 came into play, and as a result, there would be essentially more spent fuel. So based on the law, we had to do the environmental impact assessment for the changed project.
네, 답변 감사합니다. 여러분 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. 네, 이렇게 저희가 이제 QR로 그리고 사전으로 받은 질문이 모두 끝이 났습니다. 지금부터는 저희가 아직 시간이 조금 남아서 현장에서 몇 분 더 질문을 받을 수 있을 것 같아서요. 혹시 내가 사전에 QR로 제출을 했는데 여기 안 떴는데 꼭 질문을 하고 싶다 하시는 분 지금 해주셔도 좋을 것 같습니다. 저희 소속하고 성함 말씀해 주시고 질문 주시면 감사하겠고요. 손 들어주시면 직원분께서 오늘 마이크 드리겠습니다. 혹시 오늘 현장에서 질문하고 싶으신 분 계실까요? 네. 저희 뒤에서 마이크 또 드리겠습니다.
어제 질문에서 제가 상품을 탔기 때문에 상품에는 관심이 없습니다. 우리 캐나다 분이 추천해 주셔서 감사합니다. 저는 1박 2일 동안에 여러 나라에서 오신 분들이 좋은 경험과 말씀을 해주셔서 대단히 감사합니다. 근데 이분들의 그 공통적인 말씀은 투명성, 그다음에 정보 공유, 그다음에 협의, 뭐 이 정도로 귀결이 될 것 같아요. 근데 저는 약간 좀 다른 질문을 드리고 싶은 게, 저는 이제 자흥 지역에서 고준위를 유치하기 위해서 순수 민간 단체로 활동하기 때문에 제가 평소에 주민들을 상대하고 설득을 할 때 도대체 이 고준위 방패물을 뭘로 비유를 해야 되느냐. 이 주민들이 예를 들어서 뭐 마이크로 시버트 이런 거 관심 없습니다. 뭐 경주의 종전이 방포장을 제가 9번이나 주민들 모시고 하고, 뭐 월성 원자력 본부가 임시 저장 시설이 있기 때문에 거기다 가서 보고 했지만은, 가면서 제가 여러 가지 질문을 얘기를 해요. 뭐 예를 들어서 부안 사태 때 환경단체, 사회단체들이 뭘 주장해서 그 난리를 쳤냐, 전쟁터처럼. 그건 간단하게 예를 들어서 기형아가 태어난다, 또는 기형 가축이 태어난다, 그 다음에 암이나 백혈병이 증가된다, 또 마지막에는 바다나 육지가 방사능에 오염돼서 사람이 살 수 없는 지역이 된다. 그리고 거기에 생산되는 모든 농산물들, 뭐 해산물들이 팔리지 않는다, 이런 주장을 해갖고 그 난리를 쳤는데, 그럼 여러분들이 가서 그 사람들 주장한 대로 경주 중전지가 운영한 지가 지금 10년이 다 돼 가니까 물어봐라. 도대체 그 담당자한테 그거 하나도 안 물어봅니다. 뭐라고 얘기하냐, 뭐 경제적인 혜택을 뭐가 줍니까? 이런 거예요. 자기 지역에 자기 본인이 경제적인 혜택이 어떤 것이냐, 이게 가장 중요한 거지, 뭐 방사능이 오염돼서 뭐 이런 거는 뭐 관심이 없습니다. 그래서 제가 이제 주민들을 설득할 때 가장 애로사항이 뭐냐면, 도대체 이게 뭐 잘 아시지만 고준위는 아직까지는 불완전한 기술이잖아요. 그렇죠? 근데 이걸 주민들한테 코끼리 코만 만져보고 코끼리를 전체를 내가 표현을 할 수가 없어요. 그래서 제가 이제 조금 간단하게 말씀드리면은, 중조준위를 성냥개비 타고남은 성냥개비로 비유를 하고, 고준위는 타고남은 연탄재다, 이 정도로 비유라고 설명을 하는데도 불구하고 제가 제시하는 논리가 너무 빈약합니다. 그래서 여기 우리 핀란드에서 오신 우리 대표님도 계시고 한데, 주민들을 설득할 때 그런 중저준위나 고준위를 뭘로 비유해서 설명할 수가 있는 건지, 그런 어떤 아주 쌈박한 그런 좀 아이디어를 저한테 좀, 제가 그걸 가서 주민들한테 좀 써먹겠다는 얘기입니다. 이상입니다.
네, 감사합니다. 그래서 이제 고준위 방패물 또는 중저준위 방패물을 이제 사람들이 조금 더 이해하기 쉽게 어떤 걸로 비유를 해서 이렇게 설명을 하면 좋을지 혹시 추천을 부탁드려도 될까요?
If I may generally recommend that this is a challenge to Corad, and as I mentioned, all information can be simplified to an understandable form. And one, you mentioned sieverts. As such, they are not important, but one can use sieverts compared to radiation doses from flying or from Röntgen and so on. So these kind of examples should be developed, and this is a task to Corad. They have lots of information. They should then simplify. You should ask Corad to simplify this information to a useful form.
Thank you for your thoughts.
Yes, I mean, CORAD has the responsibility, but also I think it's important to involve the universities and to have those different groups to have the discussion and be able to develop understanding. Technical terms could be translated into a layman's term, by giving examples and what have you. But I think what we also have to discuss is like, what's the difference between low-level waste and high-level waste? It's just the concentration and how long it's going to be in before it decays away. So there are methods that people could support, and universities have a bigger role in also having that international meetings where people can come and describe their expertise in a way that most communicating people could probably not have that knowledge, but it's important to utilize all the different organizations that are around research facilities, universities, to help you to communicate with the public, and also looking at the publications that have been around for different organizations.
Thank you for your answer. 네, 오늘 답변해 주셨습니다. 큰 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. 네, 혹시 오늘 현장에서 질문 몇 분? 네, 감사합니다. 혹시 마이크 전달 부탁드려도 될까요?
네. 네, 안녕하세요. 저는 성균관대학교에서 네, 과정하고 있고 박세은입니다. 저는 그 OECD 리포트나 포지바를 보면서 그런 케이스들을 보면 항상 성공 비결에 대해서만 얘기를 하고 있는데 이제 거의 실패할 뻔했던 사례들이나 이제 좌절됐던 순간들이 있었는지 이런 부분들에서 좀 더 이렇게 퍼스널리하게 디테일하게 들어보고 싶습니다.
In fact, I don't now remember any that negative things. There are always failures and mistakes made, but whenever one makes those, the transparency implemented means that one communicates also the not so nice things proactively. What was happening and what was the consequence. From our nuclear power plants, we have several examples of smallish things which the nuclear power operator knows that they are smallish things. But if that is not communicated concretely to people, they quickly grow as a significant harmful impact. So the key is also to communicate understandably the not so nice things.
Thank you for your answer. 여러분 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. 저희가 시간 관계상 이제 한두 분 정도만 더 받을 수 있을 것 같은데요. 네, 저희 마이크 한번 전달 부탁드리겠습니다.
네, 저는 그 고준위위원회 멤버로 있는 박진희라고 합니다. 그 소통의 중요성 부분들에 대해서 많이 말씀을 주셨고, 그리고 이제 일반인들과 기술을 잘 설명해 주는 것도 굉장히 필요하고, 그 사람들에게 그러니까 그 수준에 맞는 답변을 주는 것도 필요하다라고 이제 말씀을 하셨는데, 아까 우리 선생님께서 한국에서의 고충에 대해서 좀 말씀을 주신 것 같습니다. 그러면 이제 거기에서는 저는 실제로 커뮤니케이션의 어떤 커뮤니케이션 익스퍼타이즈도 필요하고, 커뮤니케이션의 익스퍼트들도 고용될 필요가 있다라고 보여지는데, 라그라나 혹은 포시바에서 그런 커뮤니케이션 익스퍼트들이 실제로 고용이 되거나 혹은 오가나이제이션에서 실제로 활동을 하고 계시는지, 얼마나 활동을 하고 계시고 그 사람들은 이제 어떻게 훈련받은 사람들인지 그것이 좀 궁금해졌습니다.
네, 혹시 소통 전문가가 따로 계신지 여쭤봤습니다.
Yes, of course. We have communication teams, communication and stakeholder relations, and we are 16 persons, and we are all trained communicators. Me, for example, I studied communication management, and we are not scientists, we are not geologists, we are studied communication experts. Originally, I studied history, and I made another degree in communication management. I used to work as a journalist, and yeah, my colleagues too, they have the same background. But in the past, yes, we didn't really have enough specialists. We had scientists who had maybe a talent in communication, but they were not really professionals. But then we changed that maybe 20 years ago, and today, yeah, we only have experts, communication experts, 60 persons at NAGRA, and I think it's similar at POSIO.
Yes, in fact, if you remember the map of expertise is needed, I showed, it means that to succeed, a vast amount of versatile expertises must work together. And this means that there are also communications experts. They work together with subject matter experts, whatever copper experts or bentonite experts, and then they interpret the main messages. And we also have trained some of our experts to communicate to the public. That is not possible for all experts, because usually they talk so that ordinary people lose the point in 1 minute, but some experts can summarize their area. Our communication works so that TVO, the nuclear utility, and POSIVA, we have a common communications unit which by coincidence employs 15 people. And then we're, of course, using also external experts.
Yes, can you hand over the microphone once again?
I just wanted to add that NEA has a program, risk communication course that it gives. And I think it's important not only to have the communication people to communicate, but also the technical staff learning how to communicate. So when you're doing cross-sectional training and being able to communicate effectively and to describe risk in a way that it could be understood is important, both for the communicating group, but also for the technical. So those type of trainings exist, and I know University of Seoul is also developing a program in DGR that has the communication people, public, and also nuclear engineers to work together to have a program. So those are the type of things that we're trying to encourage, and we're going to have summer school as well to address those type of needs. It's going to be in Korea next summer. So those are the type of things that we need to develop. All of us have to learn to communicate, within our expertise, and also understand what the public needs. But there are tools and education programs that provide those trainings.
네, 소통 또 전문가라는 또 중요한 부분에 대해서 질문을 해 주셨습니다. 저희가 시간 관계상 이제 마지막 딱 한 분만 더 one more. Okay. Sorry.
I just wanted to add, as I also mentioned, that we also train our scientists, and NAGRA has about 130 employees, and I would say about a third of it get a training almost every year, and that's very important for us, and it's very helpful, and it's a really success.
Thank you for your additional answer. 네, 그 소통의 전문가라는 되게 중요한 분야에 또 질문을 해주셨습니다. 여러분 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. 저희가 시간 관계상 딱 한 분 더 받을 수 있을 것 같은데 혹시 현장에서 마지막 질문이 있으신 분 계실까요? 네, 저희 마이크 전달 부탁드리겠습니다.
I'm an attendant from Taiwan, and I would like to know that who will be the group of people we have to communicate. I would like to know how we would define the area that we may be affected by a high-level waste final disposal facility. Should it be measured by distance, such as radius in kilometers, or simply based on administrative boundaries? And how should these definition be different for different stages, such as communication, referendum, and communication benefit payments? Because we would like to know who will be the group of people that we have to communicate with. This is my first question. And if there's other time, I would like to ask the second question is, for different types of communication, most speakers talk about the importance of transparency. And I would like to know how can we judge whether the communication has fulfilled or not. For example, would there be objective standards such as the number of public meetings or in-depth discussions and the attendance rates? Thank you.
네, 그 소통의 범위를 어디까지 지정해야 되는지 여쭤보셨고요. 그리고 그 소통이 정말로 잘 이루어졌다면 그게 어떻게 측정이 될 수 있는지 여쭤보셨습니다.
First, I don't know if I remember all the little questions you posed, but first of all, there is no radius, because basically the high-level waste is isolated from biosphere. That means that there are no impacts from radiation. There are construction-related impacts, noise, transport, etc. But I wouldn't make any radius there, but communicate nationwide, regionally, and very close areas. And then you see from the interest who are interested and continue that communication. And if you remember that stakeholder map I had, it's not only one group of people, but there are several stakeholders which you, as a local actor, know best. You can have this kind of stakeholder mapping, that who are the interest groups, who are the people. That was probably everything I remember from the first question. The second was?
The second was how you will know that communication has been successful.
Yeah.
Is there any objectives?
Yes, that is in a way simple, that whatever method you use, you just implement polls, regular polls, like we do and like NAGRA does. That you see you both see people's opinions from those, and then you see what is unclear, so you can adjust your communication based on the polls. So ask people.
Maybe to the first question, I would say, if you are interested in our topic, we communicate with you, no matter where you live and how close you live to our repository. So we don't have this border or these circles. Yeah.
Is there anyone who can give additional answers, or can we move on? Oh, okay.
It's important to communicate with everyone, because you might not be at the disposal location, but there's a transport that comes from a different direction. So that also needs communication. So really what you need to consider is like, who's the affected member of the public or community that needs to be addressed and be able to communicate with them. So you have to look at it holistically. Where does it go? How does it affect? And is there somebody that would be impacted by this decision? And in terms of measurement, I think there's also polls and also surveys as they're leaving, to give you feedback as to how they felt at the meeting. Did they get what answers that they were looking for? What would they like to hear the next time? Those are the type of areas where you could learn what the public is needing to more information on, or whether you're successful or not.
And I'll just add, in addition to polling, also the relationships that you're forming with stakeholders are a really important way to gauge the general attitudes toward projects and how those evolve over time. So it's really important to build those one-on-one relationships and have conversations within the communities to get feedback directly and show that you're willing to have these conversations with the public, which helps for you to have a concrete sense of their attitudes as they evolve over time.
Thank you for your answers. 네, 여러분 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. 오늘 정말 많은 질문을 해주셨습니다. 저희 연사님들께서 하나하나 정말 성심껏 답변을 해주셨는데요. 마지막으로 큰 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. 저희 하나 더 남아 있습니다. 아까 말씀드렸듯이 한 분을 뽑아 주셔야 돼요. 네, 기억에 남는 질문이 혹시 있으면 한번 상의해 보시고 골라 주시면 감사하겠습니다. Maybe Miss Hannah Ramses can tell me your yeah. Just let me know. You can just tell me what the question was so that I can review on what was it.
Okay, we've chosen the question about the methodology of the polls and surveys and how we do it.
네, 혹시 아까 그 질문 한번 띄워 주실 수 있을까요? Was it on the screen? Yeah. Okay. 그 방법론 질문하셨던 것 같은데 그 전에 아니요. Was it about this? No. 아까 그 전에 거 혹시 이걸까요? 전문적 기술적 내용을 사람들에게 이해하기 쉽게 전달하기 위한 방법? How do we deliver easily to our people to understand the difficult part? 주민 수용성 이야기 계속 넘어가. 이전 네, 요거 김소란님이신 것 같습니다. 구체적인 조사 방법과 리서치 결과 신뢰성 확보 방안에 대해서 알려달라고 하신 거. Thank you. It took some time. 혹시 김소란님 지금 계실까요? 네, 감사합니다. 오늘 경품 당첨되셨습니다. 좋은 질문 주셔서 정말 감사드립니다. 네, 이렇게 오늘 많은 분들이 질문을 해주셨고요. 또 성심성의껏 따뜻하게 답변을 해주셨습니다. 네, 여러분 마지막으로 큰 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. Thank you very much. You can go down to the stage carefully. 네, 이렇게 제9차 방사성 폐기물 안전관리 국제심포지엄 사람 2026 공식 일정이 모두 끝이 났습니다. 먼 길 달려오셔서 귀한 경험 나눠주신 해외 연사님들 그리고 이틀간 함께해 주신 참석자 여러분 모두 진심으로 감사드립니다. 저희 2층에 준비된 오찬 함께 즐기시면서 각 테이블에 함께하는 통역사 분들과 함께 오늘 연사님들과 못다한 이야기 나눠주시면 되겠습니다. 네, 여러분 감사합니다. 정재희였습니다.
The afternoon go. Sea breeze, nap, close your eyes, close your eyes. Sea breeze, nap, soft blue sky, soft blue sky. Yeah, sea breeze, nap on a bench by the shore. I was only sitting, now I'm drifting a little more. The wind moves slowly through the summer heat, like a quiet little song at the edge of sleep. My shoulders get lighter, my thoughts come loose. The waves keep whispering, there's nothing to prove. No need to answer, no need to know. Just let the blue air carry you slow. Can you feel it? I can feel it too, in the water, in the blue. Are you fading? Just a little bit, let the sunlight take care of it. Sea breeze, nap, close your eyes. The ocean is moving, but the day feels kind. Sea breeze, nap, let it pass. The world can wait there beyond the glass. The bench holds steady under lazy light. A go crosses over, then slips out of sight. The sand hand keeps glowing past the shade of my feet, and the tide keeps folding in a soft repeat. I try to stay awake for the shape of the sea, but the breeze keeps leaning a little closer to me. No perfect dream, no story to keep, just a seaside moment turning into sleep. If I fade out, let me stay, just a small while in the blue of the day. If the waves call, let them speak. I'm almost waiting.